on New Year's Eve. Came up with our one word for 22, each of us. Did some walkthrough type stuff yesterday, and now we're on to 2-day prep today, and then we'll be able to leave tomorrow. After we finish work, I think we're excited to start SEC play. Our guys thus far have been very engaged and locked in, and excited about what's coming.
Your evaluation of what you saw from your team and the growth in the non-conference game.
I think there's been positive growth. I think in some areas, Olin, it's been slower than what we would want. From a defensive rebounding standpoint, we'll have to dramatically be better than we have been the first 13 games in order to have a chance in the SEC. Our defensive rebounding numbers are really, really poor. Our offensive rebounding numbers are good. And kind of along the same lines as what we've always talked about. I think the line of our team is based on our turnover rate and based on our defensive rebounding percentage. When we've had a low turnover rate and a good defensive rebounding percentage, those have been our best games. And it's all just math, right? It's just the number of possessions that we have had where we don't give the opponent extra possessions and where we allow ourselves to finish the possession, whether that's with an offensive rebound, whether that's with a field goal make, or even a free throw attempt. And so I think those things we identified early, and even regardless of opponent, as the 13 games have played out, those are the things that we have to still concentrate on.
What about your team's response to adversity, either like the run the other night that it was the other way, obviously not your way, and then coming off a loss, you turn around and played one of your better games from the outside looking in. What do you think, Buzz, about your team's reaction to not going good?
You know, you've probably heard this before. E plus R equals O. No. The E is the event. The O is the outcome. Everybody is always talking about the O. But the thing that's so important is the R, and the R is your response. And we've talked about that a lot as a program over the last year and a half with all the things that all of us have dealt with. I think considering the inexperience on our team and the inexperience of our team together, I think their R has been borderline elite throughout all of the things that we've been through. And that will be necessary over the next 18 games. When good things happen, what's our R? And when bad things happen, what's our R? And I think when you concentrate on your R, that's the process that most smart coaches talk about. When you're consumed with the R, the O typically works out the way that you want it to.
When you talk about the math equation of winning games, how much has y'all's three-point percentage and the ability to get threes helped kind of balance where maybe there have been some deficiencies?
Yeah, maybe on paper, Travis, you would say that you didn't think that we would shoot the ball as well as we have. I think for us, you could argue we should shoot more. From a percentage standpoint, we're doing really well on threes. Where we haven't done well is, can we convert some of those wood twos that we're shooting a low percentage of and make it more money ball-esque? Can we get to the rim and convert and or get fouled? Or can we turn down the wood two within that possession, and towards the end of the possession, it turns into a charge circle shot or a catch shoot three? And some of that is gonna come from our movement, and the movement is not our play, it's our movement after the play is over. Based on what the ball will tell you what to do. So based on our movement relative to where the ball is going, maybe let's turn down one of the lower percentage shots in hopes that we get a higher percentage shot. The thing that we have to do better, and you know this, if the line on our team in non-conference was turnover rate, defensive rebounding percentage, I added this when we worked on Friday. Friday, I guess, was New Year's Eve. I think free throw percentage is the third category. We're top 70 in the country at the rate at which we get fouled, which is really good. But we're one of the worst in the country at free throw percentage. So we're one of the best at getting fouled, and then we're one of the worst at making it. And if you cumulatively add those things up, we're shooting 65% and the national average is 70%. How can we just move the number to 70%? How can we incorporate more free throw shooting when your heart rate's up, more free throw shooting for muscle memory when your heart rate is not up? I think that's going to be the third dimension that we have to improve at, because like you're saying, we're shooting the ball well from three. If we can turn down some of those wood twos that we're not shooting a higher percentage of, and it turns into a three we're shooting a high percentage of, or at the charge circle where we get fouled more often like most teams, then the derivative of that is we need to be able to make free throws at a higher rate.
With Andre, is he a guy that you always saw that efficiency coming in his game, or is that something that he's done to kind of to enhance that in his game since last year?
Similar to what I told Olin a month ago when somebody was paying him to write an article. And I love Dre. I love his spirit, but I have the ultimate respect for who he is as a competitor. He's our unquestioned best perimeter defender. And relative to his game, we have forced more changes relative to his role than any other player in our program. I think he's shooting 52% from three. He only has 9 turnovers through 13 games, and 2 of those were in the last game. And like as soon as he turned it over, he knew that it came from over dribbling. He says all of the right things. His words and his actions match up. We need a few more guys to join him relative to the consistency that he brings as a worker every day. And as I've told him, a lot of the frustration that he has with our younger guys, like I tell him, that was the same thing you were doing, and now you see it. And it's easier for you to articulate because you have the wisdom of having lived through it. So in your own words, help those guys instead of just me trying to help those guys. And that's the next step that he's got to take, and he's done a good job of that over the last couple of weeks. But his minutes will have to increase. Several of our guys' minutes will have to increase as conference play begins. And some minutes, it's almost like no minutes is better than bad minutes. We're not going to have the ability to give possessions or minutes away when they're empty. And that's going to require guys that have consistency every day, their minutes to increase. But from an effective standpoint, on and off the floor, he's been tremendous.
Is there anything you guys have done specifically to prepare for Georgia?
Yeah, we just started, so all of our work will start 2 days before the opponent. So you'll play 2 games a week over the next 9 weeks. So if there's 7 days in a week, 2 days you're playing games, 1 day you're off. And so the remaining 4 days, 2 of them are 2 days before, and we do certain things as a staff, certain things in the film room, certain things on the floor, and then there's 2 1 day before. And same thing, certain things 1 day before as a staff, as a team in the film room, and then as a team on the floor. The only caveat to all of that is the game at home or is the game on the road? So this morning we started our prep, our first 2-day prep for the opponent, and this rep over the next 3 days will be our first prep of a road game. We still do the same things, we just kind of maybe contour to what the schedule is as far as the travel is concerned.
Georgia's struggling. When you scout them, do you see anything that makes you think, oh gosh, that's the problem? Or that's something
Typical coach response on this one. They have the same record on January the 2nd in SEC play as we do, right? We're all 0-0 except for the 8 teams that have already played a game. I think there will be 8 teams on Tuesday night that will play either their first or second game. And so this is new life for us, new life for them. It's new life for everybody. I do think as a staff, we've studied them. Obviously, I'm familiar with their staff. I know that they know everything that we're doing. And that's just kind of what happens by the time you get to SEC play. You've got 19,000 people on your staff that are doing work on a daily basis in non-conference in preparation for conference. So there won't be many secrets that won't be revealed over the next month.
And I know you've been asked this many times, but anything extra when you're playing Coach Crean?
No, no. I have great respect for him, and thankful for the chance to have been able to be with his program the 8 months that I was. Steve McLean, Coach Rock worked for at Wyoming. I've known Coach McLean longer than Coach Crean. Brian Fish was the longtime assistant at TCU when I was at UTA. So there's a lot of, like when you get to this time of the year, there's a lot of paths that have crossed for decades.
When you look at college basketball as a whole, do you see that the three-point shot is being considered a higher percentage shot than the mid-range jumper, or is that something that just your stats for this team dictate this year?
Yeah, well-worded question. I think it's both. If you watch Alabama, they're 100% money ball all the time. And I think some of this has evolved as the three-point line moved out a couple of years ago. If you study the numbers, and the other piece to this is the effective field goal percentage, right? Like if you make a 2, it's worth this, but if you make a 3, it's worth another point. And if you shoot 60% from 2s, that's the same as shooting 40% from 3. Like some of that has been more known in the NBA over the last few years. I think that all that happens in the NBA eventually marticulates downhill to college. I think some of it, Travis, is just because we pay attention to it from an analytical standpoint as a staff. I think some of how we play is obviously you want to, the best of what your guys do, you want to enhance that, and then you want to decrease what they're not good at. But regardless of the personnel on your team, just the math of it, it's pretty easy to follow. Hey, we want to shoot in the charge circle, we want to shoot behind the 3, and we want to make more free throws than the opponent attempts. Like Coach Knight was talking about make more free throws than the opponent attempts when I was in college. So I think some of the math of it is probably true, but I think when the three-point line became further away and the defensive rules didn't change and the court stayed the same, I think you're seeing more and more of that.
Anything else for Coach?
Do y'all usually do a New Year's Eve hotel?
Yeah, so I've done it for 6 years. We spend the night at the hotel. We have team dinner. We play Pictionary and charades, which is always fun. And then John Gordon wrote a book in 2012 called One Word. And I know you know this, but John Gordon is one of my friends, and it's based around the principle of resolutions. New Year's resolutions have a low carryover rate. And the one word, like what one word will recenter you throughout. And so this was Friday night, I believe, was our 6th year of doing it. It turns into a quote shirt, everybody's one word, and there's normally a theme for the year. Every year that I've been a head coach, there's a theme and there's a logo. And so the one word is every manager, assistant coach, player, what's your one word? And so we do that. I do a little different life lesson every year. I wasn't very good Friday. I was okay, not very good. They got the gist of it. And then we did the one word.
Do you have a one word for this team going into SEC play?
Yeah. This year is, your fruits determine your roots, and you've probably seen the logo on some of the stuff that we do. I think for us going into conference play, not necessarily the year, I think it will be energy/discipline. Can we play with a high level of energy? And when you do, your discipline is higher. Where we've struggled are our lulls in energy. And when you have a lull in energy, you're going to have a lack of discipline. And we don't have the margin to not play with ultra high energy /discipline. We're not good enough from a talent perspective. We're not good enough from a head coaching perspective. And so our energy and discipline have to stay at a very high level so that over time our execution is better. We play to the scouting report. And I think some of that is what I talked about on Friday night. You know, distractions are the enemy of greatness. And if you're constantly distracted, coaches are distracted, players are distracted, can we not be distracted and boil down whatever it is that we need to do to the lowest common denominator? And can we just stay on that, which is the R, in our process? Can we just stay on what are those big rocks? You know, like you have a vase and you've seen the example, you know, put all the big rocks in. Will any more rocks fit? No. And then you pour pebbles in there and gravel in there. Will any more fit? No. And then you pour sand in there. Will any more fit? And then you pour water on top of it. Like, we need to only be concerned with the big rocks. Doesn't mean the gravel's not important. Doesn't mean the sand or the water's not important. But it's not more important than the big rocks. We don't want a vase full of sand and gravel. We want those big rocks. And the big rocks are all of the things that you guys constantly hear me talk about.